ago, I came here to Glenngarry as an individual, as a person, as an electrician, and somebody who was fed up with government. Somebody who had had it up to here with government legislation and regulations. I think some might even say at that time that I may have been a little cynical, or maybe even a little bit jaded about government. And they would be absolutely correct. And guess what? I'm still cynical, and I'm still jaded completely. 10 years ago, my views were assumptions, and they were based on my observations as an individual who was far removed from politics. Today, my views are based on my observations as an MPP and somebody who is engaged and involved in politics, not from afar. 10 years ago, we in the landowners stumbled upon a way to fight back. We found a way to fight back, a way to express ourselves and halt this unrelenting stupidity of government, as Jamie illustrated once more. There are over-regulations, there are excessive intrusions into our lives and our lands, and we found a way to fight back against those public policies and laws that were detrimental to ourselves, our children, our province, and our country. And we were very successful. And it was a simple formula, but one that was seldom used and for many completely forgotten. The formula was simple. We got involved. We did things. We got off the couch, we got off the fields, and we started to do things. We found our voices, we were heard, and they were heard loud and clear, where once they had been silent. We put up signs throughout the province. We put up billboards. And maybe some of the people here in this room will remember some of the billboards here in Glenngarry, in Alexandria, calling on council to resign and showing how much money was being wasted. We sent letters to the media, and we met with politicians and bureaucrats alike. We met with the South Nation Conservation Authority, and we struck a memorandum of understanding for them to respect and have regard for our private property. We spoke to the media, we took to the streets and our highways, from Queen's Park to Parliament Hill, from Glenngarry to Tillsonburg, we spoke out. And we understood this very basic tenet that our democracy needs us, the people who vote. That's the reason why we have a government in the first place. Governments are not created for lobbyists or government relations people or big union, big labor, or big government. But they're often the only ones who have the ear of our premiers and our politicians. We got involved and we made a difference right here and across the province. We changed municipal councils, we changed MPPs, we changed MPs, and if you don't believe me, just ask Don Boudria or Roy's cousin there, the worship. Billboards, advertising, and speaking out, along with the odd dead cow, does make a difference. Sometimes our tactics were subtle, and sometimes they were not so subtle. But we learned this powerful lesson, that democracy is not a spectator sport, and it's not a sport where you play only once every 4 years. It's full-time, all the time, if you want to make a difference and if you want to win. Good government needs and means that people are involved. Every time that we see government doing something wrong, it's our responsibility to stand up and to speak out. And once again, not just every 4 years. Let me ask a few questions here. In the last couple of years especially, we've seen things like the orange air ambulance scandal. $1 billion. Whatever $1 billion is. I don't know what $1 billion is. I'll never see it. We had the e-health scandal. I think it's up to $2 billion now, but it was $1 billion a few years ago. But again, you know, we saw the Mississauga power plant fiasco. Another $180 million during the last election. And I could go on and on about these fiascos and scandals and wastes of our money. They all cost us dearly. We've seen skyrocketing hydro bills with this foolhardy green energy plan. We've seen huge deficits, huge debts. We've seen high unemployment rolls. And we've seen our province become a have-not province in this country. Now, we've got a lot of good people here tonight. That's just all happened over the last couple of years. I want to see who's going to raise their hand to this question. We've seen all that stuff happen. How many people here have written a letter to the editor about any of those subjects? 3, 4. How many have written their MPP or gone in to speak to them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Excuse my McGinty.
What's that?
Mine's McGinty.
That's okay. I'm asking if you've called and you've asked. But you can see what's going on here. You know, and these are good people, a lot of people who are active. We have to remember that government behaves just as we expect and demand it to behave. If only a handful of people tell elected people that they're on the wrong course, that they're brain dead and stupid, then they're going to think that they're doing things fine. If everybody else is quiet, quietness, silence, tells a politician that life is good. For them, anyway. That life is good. That's what silence tells government. Government won't change unless we not only ask it to change. Government will only change when we also are prepared to demand it to change. And, you know, that should be evident to all of us. You know, I have 4 children. I'm sure there's many people here in this audience who have children. If when our children misbehaved, if our children stole money out of our pockets, if our children engaged in wrongful activities, and we didn't say anything to them, what would happen? What would happen to our children? Oh, they would grow up like Dalton and a few others. You know, that is the nature of people. That is what we have to deal with. Politicians are not so all thoughtful or knowledgeable and know what's going on in the world. They need your input. Let me share a few of my observations and some things that I find important to share with you in those 5 years, near 5 years since I was first elected. I get more requests from lobbyists to meet with me than from farmers. Right? There's a lot more farmers in Lanark, Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington than there are lobbyists. I get more requests from lobbyists. I get more requests from government relations people to meet with me than I do from business people. I get more requests from special interest groups to meet with me than I do from individuals. There's something wrong in that picture. If only lobbyists, or mostly lobbyists and government relations people and special interest groups are active in this game of politics, in this game of democracy, it needs you, needs people. I do get requests from people, and here's the big difference. I get a lot of people that come into my office or call me, and they want me to help them get a welfare check. They want me to help them fix their WSIB claims. They want me to help them fix the wait lists at healthcare. They want me to fix their unique, specific problem. And I often do, and I do very well, except for that first one with the welfare checks. They get a little disappointed when they call me on that. But here's the main difference. When the lobbyist comes to see me, when the government relations man comes to see me, when the special interest groups come to see me, they're not looking for me to fix a specific problem. They're coming to me to change the law. Change the law. And generally, to add to it. And not for your benefit, but for the benefit of them or their clients. But I can tell you one thing. It's usually at your expense. Right? That's what they're coming to see me about. To change the law at your expense. I am a little jaded and I am a little cynical of politics, but I also find it absolutely rewarding as well. We've made some significant changes. We need to make far more. But here's one of my favorite quotes from the 19th century. It was a UK Prime Minister at the time, Lord Melbourne. And he was speaking about politics and parties. And this is what he said. He said, "It does not matter what lie we tell, as long as we all tell the same lie." And that is an interesting insight into politics from a politician who left politics at the time. And I'll say this. I learned long ago, if you tolerate dishonesty, you breed liars. Right? If you tolerate theft, you create thieves. It should be clear, if we tolerate unjust laws, if we tolerate excessive legislation, over-regulation, you create more of them, not less of them. You create more of the same, and you also create more of the same politicians who created them. To me, there are only two real choices for people to make. And it's not whether to vote Liberal or Conservative. Right? Or as John Diefenbaker said, choosing the lesser of three evils in politics. There's two choices. We either do nothing or we do something. And the results will be clear. The path of doing nothing creates an ever-expanding pocket edition. Right? In 2003, this book was 2,000 pages. Today, it's 3,600 pages. Right? The path of doing nothing will continue to diminish our pools of opportunities and less prosperity for both ourselves and our children. Or there is the other path, the one that we started in Lanark and the one that we started here in Glenngarry with the landowners. The one and only path that makes a difference is you speak up, you be loud, and you be proud of being part of this democracy. And if you do, it will never fail you. That is the way to get the Constitution changed for property rights. That is the way to get the legislation in the province to provide compensation. And I'll say this, once government has to begin to compensate for people for the loss of their properties, their appetite to do so will be significantly reduced. Yeah. And this is where the Toronto crowd comes in handy to us. Because if they have to compensate for loss of value, they're going to have to tax the people in Toronto to pay us. And they're going to be upset. Right? So that's what the reason for compensation is. It's to diminish that appetite of government legislation. And I will say, there is only establishing property rights and constitutionalizing property rights is the only real mechanism and method that we have at our disposal to shrink the growth of government. It is the only mechanism that will reduce or diminish how government grows and grows and grows. Like the Energizer bunny rabbit, and just goes and goes. Anyway, thank you very much. We'll be happy to take any questions, and I'd like you all to stand up, put up some more signs on your property, be involved, be engaged, write the Glenngarry News. Wendy wants to see your letters. Write the Ottawa Citizen. Call up your MPP and say, I want to meet with you and I want to tell you what I think about the law. Right? They'll get the message. They'll get it loud and clear.